Some experiments are not buried in history, because sometimes history gets lost within those experiments. In the quiet foothills of the Swiss Alps, a monastery untouched for centuries. During an archaeological excavation in 2003, researchers found a rusted chest beneath the stone floor. Only one word was engraved on it: Chronos, the god of time. When the chest's seals were broken, the documents inside silenced both scientists and historians. Among the documents were parchment pages from the 16th century, the prayers of Brother Anselm, an astronomer. But inside the same chest, something much newer was found: a notebook covered with 1943 experiment notes, modern formulas, and photographic negatives. It seemed stuck between two centuries. The ink analyses belonged to different eras, but the writing style seemed to come from a single hand. The scientists realized immediately what they held was not just a manuscript, but time itself. And from that day on, this file came to be known by a single name: the Chronos Manuscript. This was not just a discovery. It was the story of humanity's first attempt to observe time, at a moment when history itself had folded in on itself. That day, the box opened by the excavation team crossed that fine line where history and science meet. The documents found inside were named the Chronos Files. The first pages contained the handwriting of an old monk, Brother Anselm. Date 1572. The language was Latin, but the meaning was much deeper. The light did not leave the night, Anselm wrote. The sun set, but my shadow was still before me. The wind stopped, time waited, as if God had held the world's breath for a moment. 400 years later, these lines were found in another man's notebook, written in the same words. His name was Dr. Viktor Lenz. In 1943, he had established a secret research laboratory in northern Switzerland. According to his documents, he viewed Anselm's observations not as a supernatural event, but as a time anomaly. Lenz was trying to stabilize light. He called it the reflection of light back onto its own shadow. According to his theory, if a photon returns to its past trajectory, the fabric of space-time briefly folds, and at that moment, both the past and the future exist at the same point. Just as Anselm described, in that moment when shadows lose their direction, when the wind forgets to breathe, the documents contained more than just prayers. 16th century parchments were stitched together in the same file with 1940s engineering drawings. On one page, celestial symbols, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn; on another, formulas resembling Einstein's theory of closed time-like curves, and a single sentence written underneath: time is the shadow of light. Scientists assumed these pages came from different periods, but carbon tests showed that all the ink samples were of the same chemical age. So, lines written in the 1500s and formulas from the 1940s were in the same ink, on the same paper composition. This was impossible. Either someone in the past knew modern physics, equations, or these documents really came from outside of time. There was also a strange section in the documents, titled Lumen Staticum. Lenz wrote, "To stabilize light is to silence time. If I succeed, seconds will collapse into themselves." According to the records, the experiment was conducted in November 1943. That day, there was a sudden power outage in the laboratory. After that, Dr. Lenz was never seen again. The documents were sealed and hidden under the monastery from that day on. For centuries, no one touched that chest until 2003, when a group of archaeologists struck that stone floor with their pickaxes. That's why, to this day, no one is certain. Was the Chronos Manuscript a prayer written to God, or humanity's first war against time? The final records refer to Dr. Viktor Lenz's last experiment in November 1943. In his journals, he called this experiment Lumen Staticum, the constant light experiment. His laboratory was located in an abandoned mining tunnel deep in the Alps, cold, damp, dark. But within it echoed the silence of a genius trying to measure time itself. Lenz wrote in his notes, "It is possible to make light static. But when you do that, the observer and the observed become the same. At that point, who can say which way time flows?" The experimental setup was astonishing. prism mirrors arranged in 3 rings, a tube made of cadmium, glass at the center, and electromagnetic rings spinning around it. Lenz aimed to bend the light beam back onto its own orbit with this setup, that is, to send a photon back to the time it came from. But there is something strange in the records that night. The last measurement was taken at 10:46 p.m., then the electrical current suddenly cut out. On the last page of the logbook, a few words are scribbled in a hurry in handwriting. The light stopped. The sound froze. "I'm still here, but time is not." After that sentence, Dr. Viktor Lenz was never seen again. According to official records, the laboratory was completely shut down, the tunnel was sealed, and Lenz's family received only a brief explanation. The experiment failed. There is a casualty, but years later, during seismic scans in the same area, a structure reflecting metal was detected, an alloy found in no mine, a surface that reflected no light. No one can still enter that area. So where did Lenz disappear to? Some say he was caught in the light trap, meaning if the experiment was actually successful, Viktor Lenz may still be trapped within that moment. In the infinite repetition of a single moment, he may still be observing time. Years passed. Physicist Viktor Lenz, who disappeared in 1943, was still missing. However, when his experiment notes were re-examined in the 21st century, they stunned some scientists. This was because the set of equations he used showed great similarity to quantum field theory developed 60 years later. In other words, Lenz had intuitively formulated physical concepts that had not yet been defined: vacuum fluctuations, quantum tunneling, energy oscillation, during his own time. In 2008, Professor Marcus Riedel from the University of Geneva examined the symbols on the Chronos Files. The result was astonishing. Some drawings exactly matched the magnetic field arrangement of the 21st century LHC, Large Hadron Collider. However, these drawings were made in the 1940s. Riedel wrote, "It is impossible for Lenz to have known this geometry. Either these documents are fake, or someone had access to future knowledge." According to another theory, Lenz's experiment created a short-lived time loop. The light returning to its own past may have created a microscopic bend in the fabric of space-time. In that case, Lenz's disappearance would not be a vanishing but a repetition. That is, he still exists within that second. He may be turning back on himself like a photon. However, not everyone agrees. Some researchers argue that this was a psychological breakdown. They say Lenz's obsession with the experiment may have combined with hallucinations to create his own legend. But the question remains unanswered. If this is just an illusion, why do the formulas in his notes describe yet-to-be-discovered theories of physics? Perhaps Lenz didn't bend time. Perhaps time bent around him. Every new document examined by scientists showed that the Chronos Manuscript was not merely an experiment record, because the same symbols, the same geometric lines, reappeared at different points in history. In Nikola Tesla's high-frequency experiments in his New York laboratory in 1899, in the secret notes of the 1943 Philadelphia experiment, and in the engravings on a metal plate found near Geneva in the 1980s. All these documents contained the same symbol, the infinity sign standing where two circles intersect. The same symbol also appeared in Lenz's laboratory plans. Some researchers believe this symbol is not a mathematical formula, but rather the sign of the time layer theorem, that is, the node point where the past and future intersect. A faint stamp was noticed on the back of manuscripts found in 2003, a Latin phrase, tempus iterum apperitur. The same phrase appeared in Anselm's 16th century diary and in Lenz's last note before he disappeared. Although this recurring phrase appears to have been written by different hands in different periods of history, graphological analysis showed the same handwriting, so this sentence, believed to have been written by different people over 4 centuries, could have been the handwriting of the same person. Who was that person? A monk, a scientist? Or an observer who transcended time? Some historians suggested that the Chronos Manuscript could be the notes of an unknown time traveler. According to this theory, Lenz didn't just study the past, he made contact with the past itself. The symbols in the documents were found in other places around the world-engraved signs in a temple on the banks of the Nile in Egypt, circular patterns made of light in ancient monasteries in Tibet and in Antarctica, the same formula on a metal plate buried under the ice, dt, 0, meaning no time difference. When all these clues came together, a single map emerged, the map of time. This map seems to connect certain points on the globe and shows a single coordinate at its center, 48N 950E, the Swiss Alps, the place where it all began. Historians said it was just a coincidence, but some know no coincidence repeats itself so regularly as time itself. This box, found in 2003, remained locked away in the Swiss Federal Archives for years. In 2019, the file was reopened with a restricted access label. This was because new geomagnetic measurements in the area showed an unusual anomaly. Constant frequency vibration was detected at a depth of 80 meters. The frequency was too low for the human ear to hear, but it was regular, a vibration repeating every 5 seconds, 0.2 Hz. Scientists called it the Chronos Echo. This signal did not match any known geological or magnetic source in nature. Frequency analysis suggested it was like the heartbeat of a device. But here's the problem. There were no devices in that area. The tunnel had been sealed in 1943. A group of physicists at CERN examined this data. The following sentence in their final report was striking. The signal resembles a quantum resonance pattern. If correct, this may not be an energy source, but a time echo. In other words, an experiment started in 1943 could still be ongoing. Some independent researchers attempted to sneak into the tunnel. However, according to reports, the equipment of teams approaching the area suddenly malfunctioned. Compasses stopped spinning. Cameras went black. Clocks stopped. One researcher whispered the following sentence in an audio recording: "Light behaves differently here." My shadow remained stationary. This recording deteriorated within seconds, but the final sound remains unsolved. Analysis software detected an incomprehensible echo in that final sound. When frequency analysis was performed, a formula emerged, Tia. 0. The same symbol was written in the Chronos Manuscript. So even though 80 years have passed, the same equation may still be working somewhere. Scientist who disappeared in 1943, a monk who wrote that time had stopped in 1572, and a chest that was reopened in 2003. 3 centuries. One story, no one could explain the connection between them. Some saw the Chronos Manuscript as humanity's attempt to compete with God. Others said it was a warning that any mind trying to bend time would eventually get lost in it. On the last page of the documents, there is a nearly invisible note, in Lenz's handwriting: "Time is not a river. It is a mirror, and I no longer know which side I am on." These lines were his last words. Today, the magnetic signal in that area is still being measured. The frequency does not change. 0.2 Hz, like a heartbeat, but no one knows whose. Some physicists say the signal is a natural resonance. Others say it could be an echo. A memory. Or an entity. If so, whose echo is it? Dr. Viktor Lenz's? Or time itself? Perhaps the answer will never be found, because every measurement is an observation. Every observation changes time, and every change shifts the place of truth. Some experiments never conclude, some files never close, and some questions exist only for those who listen to time. This is Mysterious Files, Case 047, the Chronos Manuscript. Now the file is closing, but time remains open.